Right now, we're at the first floor of the University of Dayton School of Law here in Dayton, Ohio. We're in the Matthias Heck Courtroom. I wrote the book because I had done some earlier research on the impact of social media on jurors. And I was amazed at how much social media had influenced juror behavior. And so it got me thinking, are there other areas in criminal law that social media has had this type of influence or impact? When I say social media, I'm talking about YouTube, I'm talking about LinkedIn, I'm talking about Facebook, I'm talking about Foursquare, I'm talking about generally things that are online, involve a community, and are user created. So that's going to encompass a lot of different platforms. And to ban somebody from that, there's a high risk that you're going to violate their constitutional rights.
Talk to me a little bit about how things were before social media and the process of how things have changed.
I think it's been very incremental, the changes with respect to technology. The courts, if you go way back when the telephone was first hit mainstream, the United States Supreme Court found it constitutional for law enforcement to actually intercept phone calls. I know that may surprise a lot of people today, but their notions of privacy were very spatial in nature. And so that their ideas of when the Fourth Amendment protects you from unlawful searches and seizures, when the Fourth Amendment applies, they looked at it with respect to the Fourth Amendment applying to your house or the Fourth Amendment applying to your person. It was difficult for the Supreme Court justice in the 1920s to apply this idea of privacy to the airways or to telephone conversations. So in the 1920s, law enforcement could intercept phone calls as long as they didn't go in your house and do that. So they could go outside your house and they can listen into your phone conversation. It took some 40 years into the 1960s for the Supreme Court to realize that that is an invasion of your privacy, a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. Now, fast forward today, the issue before the Supreme Court is whether or not, incident upon arrest, can they search your smartphone? So now, as technology has advanced, the concern here in the state, we're in the state of Ohio, the Ohio Supreme Court said is that they cannot search your smartphone. Incident upon arrest, you can't search someone's smartphone because smartphone, they have a privacy interest in that smartphone. If you want to do that, you must get a warrant to state why you want to search that smartphone. Other parts of the country, out west, they allow the police, incident upon arrest, to search a smartphone.
Sometimes the jurors are asked to be removed from the courtroom. Are they told not to use their phones?
And there are numerous examples of folks actually holding polls on social media, asking their friends to tell them how they should vote on a specific criminal case. It is a big problem in the court system right now, and they're struggling with ways to how to address this issue of jurors going online and either communicating with someone about the case or researching the case. And I don't think it's necessarily going to get better unless the court takes some more drastic measures with respect to jurors, because as jurors, as we get younger and younger, I consider them younger because they're younger than me, younger jurors in the jury box, they're even more connected to social media. It's more natural for them to turn to social media. So to give them, to tell them to go 8 hours without checking Facebook, without communicating with others, is a very difficult task.
What are the judges' feelings about social media and how it's affected their courtrooms?
The challenge right now for the courts, the big thing is this idea of authentication. All evidence that's admitted in a trial must be authenticated, prove that it's actually what it purports to be. So the difficulty here is that if you want to introduce in evidence a Facebook page of someone, all right, the first initial step is you have to prove that that Facebook page belongs to that person and that person actually wrote what's on that Facebook page.
Have there been several trials that have been affected by social media?
Numerous trials have been overturned. In Arkansas, a death penalty case was overturned by the Arkansas Supreme Court because a juror would not stop tweeting. And he continued to tweet even though the judge instructed him not to tweet about the case. He continued to talk about it. And ultimately, it led to the overturn of this person's death sentence.
What's the next step? Where are we headed?
when the next steps based on the individual players. So I think it kind of varies. For example, what I've seen with respect to criminal defendants, what I think is really working its way up is whether or not you can ban somebody from social media. So, for example, you see this with sex offenders. So with sex offenders, many states have passed laws banning them from social media. So again, goes back to this point, well, why are we banning sex offenders from social media? Do we ban sex offenders from receiving mail? Do we ban sex offenders from watching TV? Do we ban sex offenders from talking on the telephone? What is unique about social media that we feel we need to ban a certain class of criminal defendants? Is there something just inherent about social media that we have to do that? Many folks believe yes. The problem, though, is that that's really going to jeopardize, that really runs against someone's First Amendment constitutional rights. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. That's with criminal defendants. Now, for respect with law enforcement. Now, what can law enforcement do with social media? I've seen them more and more using social media to interact with the community. So before, maybe law enforcement walked the beat in the neighborhood in order to understand what's going on, to get a pulse of the community, to build up relationships. Well, now with people spending more and more of their time online, especially on social media, you see law enforcement agencies creating their own social media units. You have people who do nothing but patrol social media. They do that to interact with the individuals on social media and also to look for crime, because defendants are using social media to commit crimes. They're also using social media to talk about their crimes and also to plan criminal activity. So you're seeing an increased presence of law enforcement on social media. Before, if you were a victim of crime, you really didn't have a voice. And I guess that's one thing I will say that social media does for law enforcement, for attorneys, for defendants even, and for victims. It gives them a voice. Generally, your voice, you had a voice if you had the media behind you. You needed the media to disseminate your message. But with social media, you can disseminate your own message. I would look at my book as maybe an education of individuals who read it to see the different approaches and to be prepared and to understand them. And I think that's half the battle, especially with respect to those digital immigrants, those people who immigrated to the internet as opposed to digital natives, is an education to let them know what people are doing on social media and what steps they can take just to be better informed.